On a crisp April morning in 1912, the RMS Titanic set sail from Southampton, England, bound for New York City. She was a marvel of engineering, the pride of the White Star Line, and hailed as the largest, grandest, and safest passenger liner the world had ever seen. The Titanic was more than just a ship. She was a floating palace, embodying the optimism and ambition of a new century. At 882 feet long and boasting luxurious amenities from lavish dining rooms to a swimming pool and a grand staircase, she was the epitome of elegance and technological prowess. The world watched in awe as the so-called unsinkable ship prepared for her maiden voyage, with Captain Edward Smith, one of the most experienced men in the British Merchant Navy, at the helm. The Titanic's passenger list was a reflection of the era's social hierarchy. In first class, the wealthy and powerful enjoyed unparalleled luxury. Magnates like John Jacob Astor IV and Benjamin Guggenheim mingled with aristocrats, celebrities, and entrepreneurs. Second class offered comfort, a cut above most ships' first class, catering to professionals and academics. Meanwhile, in third class, or steerage, more than 700 hopeful immigrants dreamed of a new life in America. Their quarters more modest, but still considered better than those on many other ships of the time. As Titanic steamed westward across the North Atlantic, she was lauded for her speed and opulence. But beneath the surface, there were flaws in her design, oversights that would prove catastrophic. The ship's hull was divided into 16 watertight compartments, and she was engineered to stay afloat with up to 4 flooded. Yet, 5 or more flooding meant doom. Despite these vulnerabilities, the Titanic carried only 20 lifeboats, enough for just over half the people on board. This was in line with outdated maritime regulations, which prioritized deck space and aesthetics over passenger safety. The journey began smoothly with stops in Cherbourg, France, and Queenstown, Ireland, before the Titanic ventured into the open Atlantic. Passengers settled into routines, promenading along the decks, dining on exquisite meals, dancing to the ship's orchestra, and marveling at the ship's modernity. The Titanic was not just a vessel, she was an event, a spectacle, a symbol of human achievement. But the North Atlantic in April was treacherous, with drifting icebergs and frigid waters. As Titanic raced towards New York, wireless operators received multiple iceberg warnings from other ships in the area. Some messages reached the bridge. Others were overlooked or ignored amid the bustle of passenger communications. The sea was eerily calm on the night of April 14th, making it harder to spot icebergs. No waves broke at their base, and the moonless sky shrouded the horizon in darkness. At approximately 11:40 p.m., Lookout Frederick Fleet spotted a looming shape ahead. "Iceberg, right ahead!" he cried. The bridge responded, ordering the engines to reverse and the ship to turn. But the Titanic was massive, and physics was unforgiving. She brushed the iceberg along her starboard side, scraping her hull and tearing open a series of compartments below the waterline. The damage was fatal. Water poured into 5 of the watertight compartments, sealing the ship's fate. At first, many passengers were unaware of the danger. The collision was not accompanied by a dramatic jolt, but rather a shudder and a grinding sound. Some returned to their games and conversations. Others investigated the commotion. Below decks, however, the crew quickly realized the severity of the situation. Titanic was doomed to sink within hours. Captain Smith and his officers acted swiftly, but faced an impossible situation. At 12:05 a.m., lifeboats began to be uncovered and prepared. The women and children first protocol was enforced, but the crew lacked experience and clear instructions. Many boats were launched half-empty, and confusion reigned. The ship's band continued to play, offering comfort amid chaos, while distress rockets illuminated the night sky. As the bow dipped lower and the stern rose, panic spread. Some clung to hope, believing the Titanic could stay afloat. Others rushed to the decks, desperate for a place in the lifeboats. In the end, only about 710 people found safety in the small boats, barely a third of those on board. The rest, more than 1,500 souls, remained trapped on the sinking ship or plunged into the icy Atlantic. The final moments were harrowing. The Titanic's lights flickered, her stern lifted high above the water, and with a thunderous roar, she broke apart. At 2:20 a.m. on April 15th, less than 3 hours after the collision, the Titanic slipped beneath the waves, leaving a field of debris and desperate survivors calling for help in the darkness. The water temperature was below freezing, and most who entered it died within minutes from hypothermia. The human toll was staggering. Of the approximately 2,224 people on board, only 710 survived. The majority of the dead were third-class passengers and crew, many of whom never had a chance to reach the upper decks. The disaster exposed the stark inequalities of the time. First-class passengers were far more likely to survive, while the steerage passengers suffered disproportionately. Rescue came with the arrival of the RMS Carpathia, which picked up the survivors from the lifeboats at dawn. The world awoke to the news of the unthinkable. The Titanic, the greatest ship ever built, was lost on her maiden voyage. Grief, shock, and outrage swept across continents. Families awaited word of loved ones, and lists of the saved and lost were published in newspapers around the globe. In the aftermath, investigations on both sides of the Atlantic sought to understand how such a catastrophe could have occurred. The inquiries revealed a series of failures: inadequate lifeboats, insufficient emergency preparation, and a culture of hubris that prioritized luxury and speed over safety. The Titanic had received iceberg warnings, but they were not heeded with the urgency required. The ship's wireless operators, overwhelmed with passenger messages, missed or delayed critical alerts. The sinking of the Titanic prompted sweeping reforms in maritime safety. Regulations were changed to require enough lifeboats for every person on board, regardless of a ship's size or design. Ships were mandated to maintain 24-hour radio watch, ensuring that distress calls would never go unanswered again. The International Convention for the Safety of Life at Sea was established, setting new standards for ship construction, safety drills, and emergency equipment. The International Ice Patrol was created to monitor iceberg dangers in the North Atlantic, using ships and later aircraft to protect future voyages. Yet, the legacy of the Titanic extends beyond regulations and reforms. The tragedy captured the world's imagination, becoming a symbol of both human ingenuity and human hubris. The story of the unsinkable ship serves as a cautionary tale about the dangers of overconfidence and the limits of technology. It has inspired countless books, documentaries, and films, most notably James Cameron's 1997 epic, which introduced the story to a new generation and rekindled fascination with the people, the ship, and the fateful night. Beneath the ocean, the wreck of the Titanic rests more than 2 miles below the surface. Discovered in 1985, her remains are a haunting time capsule, preserved in the cold darkness. Expeditions have recovered artifacts and documented the site, deepening our understanding of the ship and the disaster. The images of Titanic's bow, still recognizable after decades underwater, evoke a sense of awe and sorrow, a monument to those who lost their lives and those who survived. The names of the Titanic's passengers and crew are etched into history. Stories of heroism, sacrifice, and humanity emerged from the tragedy. The musicians who played to the end, the engineers who stayed at their posts, the crew who manned the lifeboats, each contributed to the narrative of courage in the face of disaster. Survivors carried the memory of that night for the rest of their lives, their accounts shaping our collective memory. The Titanic's sinking remains one of the most studied and remembered maritime disasters. It is a subject of ongoing research and debate, as historians, engineers, and enthusiasts continue to explore its mysteries. Why did the ship travel so fast in dangerous waters? Could more lives have been saved with better planning? What lessons have we truly learned from that night? Above all, the Titanic is a reminder of the fragility of life and the unpredictability of fate. In the span of a few hours, a voyage filled with hope and promise was transformed into a tragedy of unimaginable scale. The echoes of that night still resonate, urging us to respect both the power of nature and the need for vigilance in our pursuit of progress. More than a century later, the Titanic endures as a story of dreams and disaster. Her legacy is felt not only in the laws and safety measures she inspired, but in the hearts and minds of people around the world. The ship that was meant to conquer the sea became a legend beneath its waves, a symbol of both the heights of human aspiration and the depths of human loss.